trained journalist, history expert, and combat photographer in Central America.
It was an illegal covert operation. It was one of the darkest moments of my life.
The Vietnamese admitted they had arrested Knight and Graham for violating the territory of the Socialist Republic of Vietnam, and they were in prison. But now, the Vietnamese played pirate, demanding a ransom of $10,000 per man.
The British government would not pay a ransom, would they? They don't pay official ransoms. They always make a thing of, we don't pay, otherwise it just happens again.
I was held for 11 months, and 7 of those I was in solitary confinement.
By the 17th of May 1984, Graham was free and returned to America. In the years that followed, Graham's thirst for adventure remained unquenched. He succeeded in working as a photojournalist, and also, ironically, for the CIA during the US war in El Salvador.
Greetings and welcome to the Cork Graham podcast. We've had some technical issues, and now I think we have gotten them cleared, I hope to say. Happy to say. Today we have with us E.M. Burlingame. If you don't know who E.M. is, he has been around, and we have some interesting experiences in Silicon Valley that maybe in the future we'll talk about. But today we're going to be talking about the Undesirables. And I want you to right now, at this very moment, if you haven't already, go over to X and follow E.M. Burlingame. Just like the city, if you lived in the Bay Area, you well recognize this name. And also follow him on Substack. He has some great stuff that he writes about. He also gets interviewed by a variety of different people who have much, much bigger podcasts. So please go and listen to him over there too. But now we're going to be talking about the Undesirables. And just a few seconds before we came on, we talked about the effects of what it means to be an undesirable. And you should be thinking about this too. So, E.M., who are the Undesirables? And on a personal level, if you're willing to talk about it publicly, what happened with you and your family?
Yeah. Undesirables list is the same list that was created by eugenicists and, starting in the late 1800s and really solidified in the early 1900s and then codified in quite literal death camps and, kill squads under the National Socialists. So, at its basic level, the Undesirables are non-ethnically pure peoples, non-Aryan, Western, European ethnically pure peoples. They are mentally handicapped peoples. They are communists. They are, whatever the list was, right? The list of lists. Mm-hmm. That is over a century old, not a single, individual group of peoples have been dropped off that list. So how does this associate with me? Why should we care about that? Well, because that same ideological mindset is being embedded into angry young men right now. And actually some young women as well that are, marginalized and on the outside, lower status men and women. And that's taken, more than a generation, 2.5 generations back to our generation, because all that started when us Xers were, coming through school and et cetera. So what really brought this firmly to my attention about how dangerous this is, well, initially was was Trump's assassination attempt, and then Charlie Kirk's assassination.
Yep.
All of which were these, same marginalized, angry young men. And then last weekend, I posted some photos of my daughter and her friend who stays with us up skiing. Nothing major, just skiing.
I saw them. Yep.
Right. But my daughter's mixed race. Mm-hmm. I'm a first group guy. So, of course, I went and married an Asian, right? Had a child with her.
Yep.
Like many of my first group brothers.
And for those of you guys who don't know what we're talking about the Green Beret Special Forces. It's groups and SEALs as teams and the
correct.
Green Berets.
Yeah. 7th group guys married a lot of Hispanic women. Well, a lot of 7th group guys are Hispanic.
Well, a lot of 7th.
Yeah. So, it's rather common. And I got racial hate, folks that came after me for race mixing and all kinds of things.
Huh.
Some of it quite vitriolic. And the next day I made a post again with the girls and said, come after, it is not a wise idea to come after people like us for our mixed race families, because a whole lot of us special operations guys have, and intel guys have intermarried with locals. It's kind of the nature of the business, where we're focused on a part of the world so heavily for a time that we, this is not quite the same, but similar vein. In Ender's Game, right? Ender said, in order for me to destroy my enemy, I need to love my enemy. I need to know my enemy as I know myself, and I need to love my enemy. Right?
Yeah.
So, what do we do in special forces and the highly targeted intelligence communities? We focus on certain parts of the world, and we get to know the people extraordinarily well. Their language, their cultures, we spend a lot of time there. This goes all the way back to the Dutch East India and the British East India companies, et cetera. But the point is that the next day when I made the other post, I got straight up death threats publicly.
Really?
Beheaded photos of little girls and threats.
And from what? But it's like, what? So what do you think is the frame of mind that these people are coming from? Because you come from a point of view that I could see if you've attracted a type of person who thinks that the English and the British origins of identity and strength are that, then if you do intermix, I mean, shoot, I'm Hispanic. If you were actually legally talk to me, I could say, and I would back in college because of the benefits. I used them, and it's just like if you don't want people to use them, don't put them out there. I'm actually against it. I think they shouldn't have extra. It should be like you get your scholarship based on who you are as an intellectual and who can get through the testing and the grading on its own, not be compared to other Hispanics, be compared to everybody in the class, right?
Yes.
So
this is part of why there's so much, and virtually all of these, and I got a whole lot of these things, but two of them were blatant death threats, two of which I've had to report, and two of which we are moving on privately in the world that I come from.
Okay.
Right. To unmask, figure out who they are, and then deal with what we have to deal with. Right.
Wow.
That's a foolish thing for folks who think that they're safe behind the anonymity of social media. You are not safe behind. You are not anonymous, is the better way of saying it.
Yeah.
This is not the first time that I've had death threats, but I've had death threats before for what I was saying, never because I posted a photo of my mixed race kid. Right.
And did you get it from the same group of people, or did you get it from the other side, which
this
is
the
leftist?
Well, it's here. Okay, so this is the 3 articles I've written over the last 3 days. These were Groypers. Many of these had Groyper right in their tag or their title or in their description. Nick Fuentes' people.
No one else would touch.
And I would even say that the Holocaust falls under this category. When I hear these stories about gassing your own people, stealing and kidnapping hundreds of thousands of kids, bombing orphanages, cutting babies' heads off, it reminds me of all the stories about the Holocaust. Do you even know all of them? They say, for example, about the Holocaust, I mean, everyone knows the basic story. I always get grilled about it. They say, do you believe that 6 million died? Do you believe that they used gas chambers? And do you believe that it was a systematic extermination of the Jewish people? Those are the 3 concrete claims about the Holocaust that they enforce. But did you know that claims have been made by Holocaust survivors at various times in history that go far beyond those 3 things? Some have said, for example, that Jews in concentration camps were masturbated to death.
This is exactly what was done to radicalize German young men in the 1920s, in the Great Depression. Starting in the 19-teens, and then in the 1920s into the early 1930s, such that 7 million German men went away and died. Of only a tiny infinitesimal fraction of which were actual National Socialist Nazis. Right? This is what's being done to our young men. And I've been talking about it for quite some time. And I didn't realize how pervasive and extensive and dangerous it is, and how embedded it is. Because this is embedded in the infrastructure of social media and our media system, or these folks would not be able to do such a thing and think they could get away with it.
Well, it's the anonymity
openly.
aspect of it. I mean, that's one thing I think is one of the I was having a conversation last night about the whole idea that the internet was supposed to be this kumbaya together and it's going to bring people closer together and we're going to be able to connect in ways that we hadn't been able to connect. I mean, that was all the marketing, right? And now, from what I've experienced, I mean, I joined a reloading components group on Facebook and I've got a slug who freaking makes a comment that is just so way off. And it's just all it is vitriol. It was because of just anger, and it's an opportunity because of the anonymity to think that, well, you can't touch me because I'm wherever the hell I am and you don't know where I live. And it's just like, you know what? I've already dealt with that. I dealt with that, on Discovery Channel when I found out that my co-star was a pedophile and drug runner and his brother was running front and doing all this slander and all this kind of stuff on my Wikipedia page. He was doing it freaking. I found out from his ex-wife later. I even found I had the ex-wife contacting me telling stuff that they were doing, and I go, well, that's very interesting. But by that time, I'd already dealt with what I needed to deal with because I found out the freaking pedophile arrest record for the father all the way back in Washington. You fuck with me, I don't stop with you. I go after your whole fucking family, especially if I find out they're a bunch of scumbags. And because if you're a scumbag, it's probably likely that your daddy was a scumbag too. And that's where my trail led me. And that's how I wrote my book. And to this day, I have never gotten a defamation lawsuit slammed to me by my co-star because it's like, you can't mess with documentation. And Kings County freaking police department arrested this guy back in '82 for what he did. And he's lucky he didn't get killed in prison because most of those guys get killed in prison.
Yeah. Well,
but anonymity, I mean, that's the thing. These people with the anonymity part, they don't really get what that means.
Well,
you don't have it.
I don't know that that's true.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that they do know that there's no such thing as real anonymity.
Mm-hmm.
They're untouchable. They've been untouchable for decades now.
Huh.
Folks like them, even if they get rolled up, even for doing something, they get released.
Huh.
They get released. How many murderers, how many rapists, how many of these people have been, just the case thrown out or they go spend a couple months in jail and then they're released. This
is that part of the plan though? Because I mean, if I was trying to screw up a freaking society, I would create extreme lack of trust and belief
and then
from the
I would
citizens.
Incentivize people like this by giving them a voice that normally would get them shut down hard.
Yeah. Yeah. Right? I mean, and that's the thing. Why are they getting away with it? Why are people who should be in prison not in prison? Well, and all it does is anger the citizens. And it just gets worse and worse and worse until they get their revolution that they want.
Correct.
That's uncontrollable.
So what's happening is that for 40 plus years, 60 years really, but it took off in the last 40 years, they've been marginalizing young men, demoralizing and marginalizing young men. And then in the last 10, 15 years of this hardcore wokeist stuff, they drove young men into disgust.
Yeah.
This is all a pattern. This has been done more than just in Nazi Germany back in the 1920s and 30s. This has been done again and again,
thousands
all throughout
of years.
history.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Then what they do is they take an undesirables list and they say, well, all of the rage and wrath that you have is because of these people.
Yeah.
And then they direct you that wrath and ruin when you have nothing else to lose towards those people. And they incentivize it for a decade or two so that, the folks can get away with this shit that normally wouldn't.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Okay. The undesirables list is exactly the same as it's been for the last century. And so, of course, a mixed race family, a mixed race child, a mixed race family that's actually having a good time out skiing somewhere. Right? So demonstrating a life that, the individual themselves probably can't afford and probably can't enjoy. Never mind that I've lived in abject poverty in my life and worked my ass off to get to where I am. And nobody gave me a damn thing.
Yeah.
But to that point, part of the anger, back to what you were saying about going to school on some extra points.
Yeah.
Well, that's part of their anger, and that's justifiable anger because how many of their parents or how many of them weren't able to get into school? I had this happen 30 plus years ago when I was a tomb guard at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. We had two tomb badge holders. I can't remember the names right now. I wouldn't say them anyways. One of which was trying to be a U.S. Marshal. That was his dream. He's a very poor boy from Texas. He joined the army when he was 17, and he had worked very hard to do all the right things and get security clearances and be a tomb sentinel and all of these things to study, all of that, to educate himself, study, and all of that to be able to pass the marshal's exam, which at the time in the early 90s was not inconsequential, right? Civil service exam was actually fairly rigorous back then.
Yeah.
He went and took the test. I think he scored at the very top. He'd spent 2 years preparing for it. A black man took the test at the same time and was given 60 or whatever, 50 or 60 extra points, which put him just above, the badge holder. He didn't get the position. The black guy did.
Wow.
Well, what's even worse, which totally demoralized him because he'd spent years, right?
Correct.
I don't know what happened to him after that. I left the tomb shortly thereafter, maybe a month or so after. What we found out later is that the black guy was in the Marshal's Academy and found out what had been done, and he dropped out because he didn't feel that he had earned it. That was
kidding.
Right.
Oh, wow.
So a lot of respect to him, and I hope he went on and did all right in life.
Yeah.
Right. But so it's not just that. Give me 1 second. It's not just the people that were wronged on purpose to drive them into this place of rage and despair. White people are being driven into this place on purpose because when white wrath goes, it's really good at killing.
Yeah.
I mean, really good at killing. But you got to get it into the place where it wants to, and that might take 2-3 generations.
But you call it white wrath? I call it any kind of wrath because I just find that in all human beings. I mean, you've been in places, I've been in places, and it's just like when it gets once that snowball gets going, you just can't stop it. I mean, the atrocities that occur as a result of it.
Well, I don't disagree, but whites are way more capable of industrial scale atrocity than anybody else is.
Do you think it's because we actually keep ourselves in check, and that's the reason we have so many regulations and rules throughout centuries that have been created just to keep us from doing the things that we could actually go do?
Yeah, we have civilizational constraints on our wrath and rage. We have developed, this is what civilizational peoples do. Civilizational peoples find very sophisticated ways of relating to one another, whereby we can let off that pressure, whereby we don't have to go to full-on wrath and physical violent wrath and rage. Now, at certain points, that breaks down. Now, it certainly breaks down when it's intentionally being broken down.
Well, what you're bringing up is a question I've always had, which is that when I talk to lawyers, they're so confident about the law, and it's just like especially in California, I noticed over the last 40 years, it's like when I would talk, and I have a lot of friends, and actually one of my exes was a lawyer, and it's like they believe in the word so much, and they don't understand that the reason that the word is even valid is because of the potential of extreme violence that backs up that word, whether that could be in law enforcement or it could be the idea that you just have a society that finally just says enough, and then they rewrite the letter of the law.
The only true currency of a people is the violence of their men.
Yeah.
Physical violence of their men. All other things are dependent upon that. And the societies that can emerge over time into civilizational peoples are the ones who learn how to invest that physical violence capability for the future generations and not squander it.
Yeah. But what has happened? So in the last 40 years, as you see it, it seems like they've done such a good job. It's not even the last 40 years. It's actually the last 150 years that they've killed off a lot of our genetics, starting off with World War I, where you had the people who would have by now been to blows with the government, the law, and everything is in contrast to what it is now, which is you see an apathy, which is kind of like whatever, and they're hiding out, in their mother's or father's garage or basement and not willing to come out, except to play video games and play war games on Xbox. So it's kind of a. I want to differ with that. Okay.
All right. That may have been true 10 years ago, 15 years ago. It's not true anymore. It's not true anymore. I'm watching the younger generation, and they're breaking free of all that on their own. Right?
How are they doing that? And what are the examples that you see of that?
Well, they're putting down their phones more. They're not playing the video games. They're relating to one another more. They've already seen it all. and they see how empty it is, and they realize there's nothing for them if they try to go down the path. Don't think that these kids aren't reading and they're not paying attention to all the shit that's being said. Like
what age bracket are we talking about right now? The
Gen Z.
free. Say
Gen Z. Gen Z.
Okay.
Right? 20s, early 20s and teens.
Teens. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Teens and into their 20s.
Okay.
And there's some brilliant minds there, like Rudyard at What If Autist, and I can't remember his name, Boyd at Uber Boyo, Irish fellow. Stephen Boyd, I think, but I can't remember. But there's some brilliant Gen Z folks. Gen Z kids are pretty much broken free of that. Younger millennials, Ben Kelleran and others. They've realized that if we keep on this path, there is no future for us. So we must find ways to, with one another at our generational cohorts, make something for the future. Unfortunately, they're not the norm in terms of they're not the mass majority.
Yeah,
but they're not an inconsequential minority, and they're growing in scope and scale. So there's a subset, of younger Xers, many millennials, and very few Gen Zs, but some there who are very much susceptible to the siren cry of the Groypers, of the apparent right, this nationalist, right, ethnocentric cry, just the same as there were with the Germans in, the 1920s into the 1930s. That's all being intentionally fostered and supported over the last 40 years, but really targeted now since the killing of Charlie Kirk, because Charlie Kirk was the moderating voice for all those generations. So they had to take out the moderate.
Yeah.
Right. So what people really need to be concerned with right now is these Groypers. This is how Charlie Kirk was killed. They used these same kids, these same people playing what's called an alternate reality game to get that young man in position to shoot at Charlie Kirk. Now, whether he actually killed him or was a professional doesn't matter. They were able to pin it on that young man who was playing a game, a very deadly game, a very, very real and very deadly game. That's also most likely how they got the kid on the roof in Butler, Pennsylvania, to shoot at Trump. Right? Yeah. These kids are radicalized beyond what people can believe. And I just saw it in no irrefutable terms.
And they're easily played. The whole key about this is that they're easily played because their emotional aspect has bypassed. That's the reason I got this show, is just to get people to think. I'm not going to give them the answers. It's like nobody can really give you the answers. We can give you a lot of facts. We can give you a lot of intel that you might not be appraised of yet or in the past, but you can make your decisions. But if you're not even making your decisions based on some critical thinking ability, which has been really wiped out through our education system, and I have documentation of when it exactly started, when our education system was stolen back in 1935, going all the way back to the Reese Senate Committee. And that's another thing, too. It's like there is all this documentation, but if you bring it up, they're like, what? And they don't know about it because we're so preoccupied with making money and having jobs and all that kind of stuff and keeping ourselves running on the treadmill, that in contrast to our ancestors who actually sit under an apple tree and read books of thought, John Locke, and all these other things that enabled the people to create a nation, that we don't have that time, and they know that. And it's actively stolen from us. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, in cognitive capacity as well.
And that too. Yeah.
I wrote 3 pieces over the last 3 days. They're all a set piece. Right.
What's the title of it so we can send people over there? Is it over at X?
They're over at X and on Substack. You have to look the last 3 days. They're longer titles. Okay. But they're my articles, formal articles on X and on Substack over the last 3 days. Give me 1 second. The first day is discussing about how this apparent move towards nationalism is a move to the right, when in fact it's not a move to the right. It's a move from left of left to right of left, which is exactly what the National Socialists were and did.
Yeah.
Right. And we've all been educated that was a move from the left to the right. The National Socialists were the National Socialist German Workers' Party. They're about as left as you could get. The second piece is about how nationalism of any form or fashion is by definition socialist. Because any national system, any governance structure is by definition socialist.
Yeah.
It's collectivist.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's socialist. So anyone who articulates that, this rise of nationalism or far right, et cetera, you're still talking the left. You're still talking leftism. You're still talking communism, Marxism, socialism. And then today's piece that I wrote was about, well, what is the actual right?
Okay.
And what is conservatism then? Because 99.9% of what I see about conservatism and the right is actually just the right of left. It's about conserving systems, structures, and institutions, all of which are socialist.
Yeah. It's kind of like when people call themselves liberals and say, you are not a liberal, they're leftists. And when they call themselves liberals, I mean, it's just like people consider me as a conservative, but I'm actually saying, no, I'm actually, if you really look at me, because I believe in Jeffersonian republic as the United States, I'm actually a liberal because that's what those people were. The liberals were the rebels. My family were rebels in South Carolina. They were not Tories who were the conservatives.
I think it's, unfortunately, I disagree with you a bit there. I think it's more complex than that. What people need to realize, and this is another thing since the 1930s, the education system, is that the United States of America was not designed on the Roman system. The United States of America, Constitution, Declaration, Bill of Rights, all of it, and all the other related things was based on the English Constitution and the English Bill of Rights from the 1600s and from the Scottish and English Enlightenment of the 17th and 18th century.
Yes.
So give me 1 second. The liberalism that we know in the English-speaking world is the liberalism of, as you said, Locke and Hume and Spencer and Adam Smith and Burke, right, and others. That liberalism was not anti-monarchical. It was not anti-nobility at all. What it was about accountability.
Okay.
At all three levels, which is the core of English civilization. Our king, the great king, His Majesty Alfred the Great, his son Edward, and his grandson Athelstan fought for over a century, or just around a century, to ensure that the English civilization emerged as a codified people based around the dooms of Alfred, the common law.
Alfred,
right. And why was it called common law? Well, it was because it was common to all. King, noble, elite, and peasant.
And that's what common means, not poor. It means
correct.
Common.
It means common to all socioeconomic classes. And this we've adjudicated out in blood numerous times in the English-speaking world. The last time we truly fought this out to, ensure that this common law and this commonness between all the socioeconomic classes, in common more than anything else, but in common obligation and purpose to one another and to our civilization, the thing that we are conserving, our civilization, we fought this out every 400 years. And so far it's held. And okay, well, starting in the 1930s, this fight was coming. I personally believe more and more, as I look at this over decades, more and more, I believe that Germany was set up to be cannibalized last century, used for great war, one last conflagration of their men. Sacrificed. Their young men sacrificed in a bloodbath to steal as much as could be stolen, break as much as could be broken, to re-collateralize the Roman system. Rome 2.0. And that at the time, it was already decided that the English-speaking world would be next. And it happens about every 80 years that they take some people, this is the Financialist Kill Chain, one of the books I've written, and about every 80 years, they take some major power through this step 7 of the Financialist Kill Chain, which is collapse and abandonment. And
now, when you say they, this is really important, because who are they? We're not talking about like the entity, but who are they personally?
Rome.
As people. As a people.
It's the Praetorians of Rome, quite literally Praetorian Guard. This is in the book I wrote, The Financialist Kill Chain.
Mm-hmm.
There's pieces of it in the book I wrote, This Our English Civilization.
So are you saying this is based in the Vatican or it's based in the city of London?
Well, the city of London is the Vatican headquarters. It's an outpost headquarters.
An outpost.
Same as Brussels.
Yes. Okay.
Right.
In Basel and
Basel and Davos and parts of Wall Street,
Okay.
UAE, although UAE may be changing, right? Qatar we just took Qatar away from them, and Venezuela and we just took Venezuela away from them, right? Removed the HQ. We haven't taken it away, but we restored the sovereignty of the people of Qatar back to the Qataris, and we stored the sovereignty of the Venezuelans back to the Venezuelans.
Okay.
No.
So now when you talk about the Vatican, is this the original Vatican or the one that's actually been, because the Vatican, it seems like if you look at the history and as it's changed drastically, and it's changed by different factions within. Kind of like, with the CIA or the government or the military, you get a faction in there, and then I'll listen to Candace Owens, and she's talking about, the military is all satanic. And I'm going, no, it may have elements that have popped in there who are trying to do whatever they're trying to do, where you have people who come from whatever background they come from, and they bring their element, and then they create their little cells, and these are power plays. Like in everything.
Parasites. They're parasites that hide within.
Exactly.
They're parasites that hide within the host.
Mm-hmm.
So to your question, right? This old, and again, in the book I wrote, Financialist Kill Chain.
And where is that available for people to go and
Amazon, or they can get a signed copy. They go to my website, emburlingame.com.
Perfect.
Otherwise, you can find it on Amazon. Financialist Kill Chain.
There's
another one called This Our English Civilization, which has component pieces of it in there as relates to us, the English-speaking peoples. This all goes back to original Rome. It goes back to the Battle of Milvian Bridge, where it's a Praetorian problem that I've written about extensively on Twitter. And
where is this bridge physically in
Rome?
History?
It is in
Rome. Okay.
312, there's a battle. Constantine defeated the Praetorians and their emperor, killed the emperor, killed a lot of Praetorians, took over a century to set all of this up, drew them out, killed them, crushed them, said that if you ever come together as a force or a power, we will kill you. And he did, anytime they did. A number of the survivors, the leaders, with immense amount of stolen wealth, went to the lagoons of Venice, where they were pretty much untouchable at the time. You couldn't reach them. And they developed Venice, and then they developed the Venetian banking financialist system that with the whole world, and then that's in the 600-700. By the 600-700s, they're now the Venetian Empire. And they set about fundamentally restoring Rome, only this time restoring Rome in the form of the Holy Roman Church, which would then go on for the Holy Roman Empire, etc. So Holy Roman Catholic Church did not exist before 1054.
So this story about Constantinople being the first, quote, Christian pope, he is or this is after?
Well, they're, what are those called? Patriarchs. So
patriarchs.
In the original Christianity of Constantine, it was patriarchs, and then there was the Pope in Rome. But the Pope in Rome did not have the strength and power and all of that until 1054, when there was the schism, which then which is Second Rome. The 1054 schism that established the Holy Roman Catholic Church is Second Rome, in the form of the Catholic Church.
So in contrast, what was first Rome?
Rome.
So that's all the way until this schism. And then this schism is when it totally flips over. So Christianity is already involved in the first Rome, but at the end. Yes.
And okay. Yes, but not as much as we're told later on, by the way, right? Constantine, who was in the Eastern Empire, right? Which at the time, and had been by the time of Constantine, the Eastern Empire, the lands of the Eastern Empire, the old Hellenistic world, had been Greco-Buddhist for 600 years. right?
Mm-hmm.
That was what came back with Ptolemy and the other generals and
Yep.
Alexander's soldiers, etc.
Uh-huh.
One of the things that came back was Buddhism, because they had met Buddhism in the Eastern Persian Empire, in what is now Afghanistan, and all of that, right? People need to remember Afghanistan was Buddhist until not too very long ago.
Huh. All of Afghanistan or the eastern part?
All of Afghanistan,
Oh, wow.
all that whole region, because of the Mongol
that's
Khanates.
what the Taliban was blowing up.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Correct.
Yeah,
in our lifetimes, blowing
in
them
our
up.
in our lifetime, they're blowing them up. Yeah.
Okay. So give me a second. What Constantine realized is that as long as Rome was a physical was a physical thing in the form of individual personages, emperors, and in the form of land, it was constantly going to be under attack and vulnerable, primarily to Praetorians, to internal threats that could corrupt it and kill emperors and take control, because that's what had happened after Augustus. No emperor between Augustus and Constantine was actually free and independent. Every emperor and judge, magistrate, generals even, noble, elite, senator, etc. All of them had Praetorian guards. The Praetorian guards were the power because they could assassinate and they did, a lot of them, at any moment of any time. We have a major Praetorian problem right now. That's the real power.
When you
in the
said that,
world.
I was just like, okay, here we go.
Right. So
yeah,
what Constantine did, and his two successors before him, is realized that they needed to virtualize Rome, so that it wasn't in the form of a personage and geographic land. It was a concept and an idea that couldn't be killed.
Yeah.
And even if you killed the emperor or you took some land, it didn't matter, because whoever the conquerors were, unless they killed absolutely everybody, the ideas and concept of Rome, in this case, Orthodox Christianity, the Orthodox world, would endure.
Yeah.
Right. And it was brilliant. I've written about this in my novel, As Rome Burns. It's one of the most brilliant innovations. This is why I think personally, the most consequential man in European Western history was Constantine.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people would agree with that. I mean, so many things
not
changed.
Because he introduced Christianity, but because what that really was. What that was is he took Rome and virtualized it and set it loose. This power structure, this, right? Okay. These status hierarchies and distributions of power and obedience and all of these complex ways and things. Okay. Later on, the most consequential woman in all of European history is Eleanor of Aquitaine, but that was 800 years later, right? Okay. Give me 1 second. The Holy Roman Catholic Church was established as the Second Rome. Its primary task was to get revenge for Constantine's success at destroying the Praetorian guards.
Interesting. Okay.
And freeing the Romans, the Roman Empire and the Roman peoples from Praetorian power. Yeah. And so what did they do? Personally, I think they invented Islam as the enemy, as a counter, as a terrorist force, and allowed them to flood into Christian, quote unquote Christian Europe for several centuries to create the rage and wrath necessary. Yeah. And then the Holy Roman Catholic Church called for crusades. Only 90% of what principalities and kingdoms that were defeated by the Crusaders were all Orthodox, not Islamic. People can go look that up and study that. The Fourth Crusade itself was specifically directed at Constantinople. And it sacked Constantinople, created Latin states, and Constantinople, the Byzantine Empire, stumbled on for another 2 centuries. Okay. And then finally the Ottomans, Muslims, finally conquered it. Okay, well, that's the 1400s, 1200s into the 1400s. What happened, though, is that created this Praetorian Venetian empire, this financialist empire, was now physically threatened because the Eastern shield that had been Byzantium was now gone. Yeah. And so they fled to Amsterdam. Again, people could just look this up, right? They fled to Amsterdam, and embedded themselves in Amsterdam as these financialist bankers, etc.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
In the 1500s and 1600s. Well, they created four stock companies. They virtualized commerce. They virtualized trade. They virtualized all of these things. In the early 1600s, they realized, well, we've been causing all of these wars on the continent of Europe, you know, and Protestantism and all of that, so that they would fight against each other. And the whole purpose was to try and remove hereditary princes, because hereditary princes and their people, self-sufficiency, were the only counterbalance to the financialist, you know, total and absolute control, you know, owning everything and then derivatizing everything and buying and selling and stealing everything.
So, so this history of the financialists coming in and usurping and creating chaos, this goes farther, much farther than even the founding of the Rothschild family by Mayer.
This is 1,000 plus. Okay, Rome did this. So what people need to understand is that Rome moved peoples around the empire specifically so that the peoples would be in conflict with the native peoples of the lands they were moved to.
So we're talking again about another subject, which is actually cultural relocation, which is happening right now in the United States and in Europe, and has been. And it's an attack. It's an invasion. It's an attack. It's a restructuring, as was done before.
It's setting up an ant jar that can be shaken, as Alex Craner says, an Alex jar that can be shaken at any time to cause violence, so that the local peoples have to spend 80% of their time, energy, resources, etc., in defense,
distracted
against their neighbors. Not some foreign enemy on another side of a border, but their own communities. This is what the Romans did. The Romans did not control the Roman Empire with legions. They didn't have enough.
Exactly.
They did it this way. Okay. In the 1600s, this has been going on now across the continent of Europe for over 1,000 years. The Venetians, the Praetorians, tried to retake the old Roman Empire. Now they've made the continent so hot, and this gets back to the undesirables and, you know, all of this from the beginning of the conversation. So then they do a hostile takeover. The Dutch East India Company, the British East India Company, in the form of sending William and Mary to England to take over and occupy the crown of England and Scotland. Right. And what would become the United Kingdom. And that force, that Praetorian force, has been in control of the English speaking peoples to this day. Okay. Now, how do they maintain control? How do the British Empire?
Division. It's chaos and division. It's always been chaos.
Okay, so great.
Separate and divide and conquer.
How did the British Empire, who never had that many soldiers, never had that many people, and oh, by the way, the Dutch East India VOC, the Dutch East India Company, closes down and rebrands as the British East India Company, and it had a bigger navy and bigger armies than the Crown of England, than the actual United Kingdom. Okay. How did they, you know, build out the largest empire that's ever been? The way Rome did. Why? Because it was Rome behind it. It was the Praetorians of Rome, actual Praetorians and Praetorian families of Rome, and others of, you know, and now, you know, they bring the Jews in the 10s, and, you know, in around 1000 AD into 1200 AD, because Europe needed to send its young men away for war, and you needed a managerial class that was capable of handling, you know, administering kingdoms and principalities and all this wealth flow, etc. Well, the Jews were available for that. They weren't warrior-like people. You didn't really need, but the quid pro quo is that they're going to be the whipping boys, and every once in a while shit goes wrong. You're going to give us a list of names, maybe 10,000, maybe 30,000, and we're going to kill them. And we're going to expose you for a while, but you get to keep your wealth and you get to keep your assets. And, you know, in a century or so, we'll bring you back. That's the deal.
That's how it happens. The whipping boys.
It's the whipping boys now. And now the Jews are being replaced. Well, the Jews are being replaced with Indians. The new whipping boys are the Indians. They're very good managerial. There's a whole lot of them. They were raised in the British system, you know, this Roman British system for 300 years. Right. So now, how does this work? Well, you go in again, the financialist kill chain goes into all of this, right? But what do? You use the martial capacities of the next country, the next nation, state, kingdom, principality that you're setting up for collapse. You send their, you get their young men, through God and glory or whatever.
Which has been the United States for the last 150 years. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, Germany had to get taken down first because they're right there. And oh, by the way, the most staunch enemy of Rome has always been the Germanic peoples.
Teutonics,
right? Yeah. The English-speaking peoples are Germanic peoples.
Yeah.
Predominantly, Celtic and Gaels, et cetera. But we're predominantly a Germanic people down underneath, even the Celts and Gaels, et cetera. Mm-hmm. All right? So they've been intending to take down the Germanic peoples, the most productive and martial capable peoples, over the last century and a half, as you say. And they've been doing very well. Okay, well, we are no longer, particularly after the global war on terror, we are no longer willing to go fight holy wars.
Yeah.
We couldn't give a flying fuck.
Yep.
We're not willing to go fight for honor and glory. Mm-hmm. We couldn't give a flying fuck.
Yep.
Right? And we also know what's been done in our own homes while we were overseas doing some real shit.
Exactly.
Right? So now what do they got to do? Well, now they got to, and they know this very well. They've done this so many times over the last 2,000 years, and it was probably done before by the Greeks or whoever, Persians or whoever else, right? But at least for us, we know because we have the records going back to the Romans, even before Caesar Augustus. Okay. Julius Caesar. Caesar. Okay. What they did have to do here is the same they had to do to the Germans after World War I, because after World War I, the Germans like, yeah, fuck all this. We're not doing this. We're not doing this again. We don't want a war. We want to do this stuff. We're not going to go slaughter ourselves in great numbers again, because in World War I, the Germans lost a huge number of men.
Yeah.
And then they were, turned into slaves in their own country afterwards. The Germans like, we're not going to go fight like this again. Mm-hmm. So what did they do? They drove them into despair, despondency, and disgust. That's how they got them to go fight World War II. It's exactly what they're doing to our young men right now. It's exactly why these young men, and these were humans. We know I don't want to say doxed because I don't know exactly fully what that means, but we're figuring out exactly who they are. These are human beings. We'll deal with it as we have to, right? Mm-hmm. These are actual humans, and they're not all kids, by the way, right?
Yeah.
What's happening is that they have driven our young men into, the 3Ds, such that our young men now are willing to be targeted towards whatever gives them a chance to let that wrath and rage out, and might maybe give them an ability to earn some status in the real world. And what is that? The same way with the Germans, for the very same reasons, a century ago, almost exactly a century ago, is targeting the undesirables list. That's mixed race peoples, that's ethnic peoples, that's mentally handicapped peoples, that's Marxist, right? Most of all.
Well, the thing about Marxism, socialism, what about the conflict between that? Because Marxism is
it's a false conflict. It's a false and art. That's the thing I wrote in the first article in the 3-part series. It's an artificial argument.
That they're the same coin.
They are the
Two
same
faces
people.
of the same coin.
They're same. What it is you've got your insane Marxist and your sane Marxist.
Okay.
Your insane Marxists are the ones we call Marxists. Mm-hmm. Your sane ones are the ones we call National Socialist in the last iteration. But in this, what they're being called now is the alt-right, or they're being called the right or far right or whatever, right?
So what would you call? So when you had the friendship under Ribbentrop agreement between Germany and Russia, and you had them as friends, and then the shift to the invasion of Barbarossa, the invasion of Russia. The impetus for that and the reasoning for that, other than to basically destroy Germany in the end.
No, it was to gut Germany, to make sure that Germany's men died in such numbers they would never be a martial threat.
Because there's so many numbers of men in Russia who are willing to do that.
Well,
And it's
Russia
and
lost
it's ancient. It goes all the way back to the Teutonics, the Knights, and the Slavs.
Okay, so you want to touch on that? You want
Yeah.
to know what that's about? That's
Yeah.
about Constantine. That's about the Byzantine Empire. What people need to realize is that the Kievan Rus are actually Varangians who were Varangian guards of the Byzantine Empire.
Mm-hmm.
The Slavic princes could not adjudicate between themselves. And so they brought in the Varangians who had finished their time and set one family. It's called the Rurikid family. People can go look them up.
Yep.
And they set up Rurik and his family. Rurikid is, Rurik's family.
Mm-hmm.
They set up the Rurikid as the royal family, the Kievan Rus royal family that adjudicated, because this is what happens. Monarchs do not create themselves. People need to get that out of their damn head.
Yeah.
They are elevated by peers to adjudicate between the peers those things and given certain powers, right? Superordinate powers, so that they can adjudicate between the conflicts of peers, because peers can't do that. And so they elevated, the Slavs brought in the Varangians, Swedish Vikings, and elevated them, but they were all coming out of Byzantium after their 20-year service, right? The Rurikid family married into the top of the Euphrosyne family, which is the Byzantine royal family, twice, as in the sister of the emperor.
Yeah.
Okay, what does that mean? It means that legitimacy-wise, unbroken chain, the Russians, particularly the royal Russian family, which is why they slaughtered the Romanovs, although there's still some alive, because Romanovs are Rurikids.
Yeah.
They're the latest branch of the, dominant branch of the Rurikid, same family. Technically, the Romanovs are Byzantines.
Oh, okay.
They are, and what that means is that technically the Romanovs are Romans, right? In terms of emperor, imperial lineage, etc., they go back to original Rome in this pedigree system and process. That means that the 1054 schism Rome is not legitimate if we're going to go back to, legitimacy and all of that.
No,
So,
I'm sure a lot of people don't really get, and sometimes it's hard for me to grasp is the identity of the Praetorians, because now Praetorians are being thrown around as kind of like, quote, the Senate or the Congress or the warriors and that kind of stuff. But who were the Praetorians, and how do those Praetorians relate to what you're calling the Praetorians now?
Yeah. Okay. Great question. All right. And people can go look on my profile on X, and I've written several threads, tweet threads on the Praetorian problem.
The Praetorian problem.
The Praetorian problem. You can put that in the search under go to my profile and then put that into the search.
Cool.
Or you can go to Grok and look that way. It seems to be better than even the in app search. Anyways, Caesar Augustus established a security force for him, and because we have to remember, Julius Caesar was invited across the Rubicon. He was invited. He did not force his way.
Yeah.
He was invited across the Rubicon
Yeah.
to put down what was a 20-year civil war. When Julius Caesar was assassinated, what did it initiate? Another civil war. 20 some odd years of civil war.
Who was the civil war that he was supposed to come in and quell?
It was between all kinds of factions.
Everybody was going for power.
Everybody was going for power
And wealth.
Yeah. Well, and the power and position that
you
led
kind of
to
find
wealth.
that right now, actually, in the dark halls of
It's all the same, right? And folks really need to understand something. The people that are going for money don't have power.
Yeah.
The people that have power can have money if they want it, if they need it, they can get it, they can move it, they can manipulate somebody to, right?
Yeah.
So the ones who we look to that have all this money, they don't have a lot of power.
Exactly.
The ones that are trying to get money, they're pushing for money, they're not building power.
Yeah.
Power people have real power. You might not ever know their name.
Yeah.
Because
people talk about Soros and all this kind of stuff. Said, no, that his name. So he doesn't really matter.
He's the hired help.
He's a representative. He's in front of the veil.
Hired help. Yeah. Okay. So Augustus, in order to secure himself and his senators and his magistrates and all of those who were actually trying, much like the current administration, by the way, here in the United States, who were trying to get under control this corrupt, massive system, right? And all the different factions, et cetera, they had to have their own security that they could trust.
Yep.
Right. So they didn't get poisoned, they didn't get assassinated, et cetera. So he established what was called the Praetorian Guard. And the Praetorian Guard were not just selected from the military, they were also selected from mercenaries. But they were hand-selected individuals who were then the close-in security for all of the high-level elites of the Roman world, to include generals who didn't know if they could trust their own soldiers because of buying and pay. Everything was up for sale, right? Yep. Okay. Give me a second. By the time we get to the Claudian emperors, right, which is the successors of Augustus, the Praetorian Guard were already in power. They were already the power because they had the knives to all of these people's throats.
Yeah.
And that group and organization had already been infiltrated and corrupted by people who saw it as this hidden and nearly invisible power structure and system they could use to own and control the Roman Empire without needing to own or control anything but the security, assets.
Okay.
And so over the next, roughly 3 centuries until Constantine in 312 at Milvian Bridge, the Praetorians were the power of Rome. And the Praetorians were in 2 pieces. There was 2 sides to the Praetorians. There were those who managed all of the wealth and assets and resources and did all the planning and all of that for, how this, assassination threat power system would be used to benefit individuals. How was the money, how was the wealth, the money, and all of that laundered? How was it filtered to, all the kinds of things that are happening right now today at vast scale, right? Where did legions go? What conflicts were started in what part of the empire? What individuals were assassinated, in the Roman power system and structure to ensure that real wealth and power all flowed to the Praetorians, at least to Praetorian control, right? So that there was no wealth or power base that was allowed to be established that didn't have Praetorian guards there to kill the family members of the individual. Okay, so that went on. This goes on for 300 years. Constantine kills them. They flee in 312. Some remaining ones flee to Venice. Over the next 300 years, they build up. By the 600s, they're already causing problems between Rome and, Rome, the Western Empire, the city of Rome, and the Orthodox world in the form of a conflict, a quote unquote ecumenical conflict between the Roman Catholic Church, not the Holy Roman Catholic Church yet, because that didn't happen until later, but the Roman Catholic Church and the Orthodox Church. But that also then started this conflict between different princes, different principalities, different, that ecumenical became in the way today, kind of a ideological nation state kind of conflict. That same Praetorian regime and system, financialist system, the Venetian financialist system, was the managerial class of the old Praetorians. The banking, financial, managerial, intelligence, huge intelligentsia capabilities. And then what did they do? Well, they steadily got their mercenaries and their security folks in certain people's houses. Right? All across. And okay. Today, we have a Praetorian problem in that the Praetorians are the big unaccountable financial systems and structures and banks and all of that, many of which go all the way back to Rome, original Rome, but really, which, in the most powerful ones that we know today, took off from 700s afterwards.
And it seems like they're even more dangerous than actually having an assassin hiding in your closet.
Well, give me 1 second. The Praetorian Guard still exists. You can't, if you're a high net worth person or a high influence person, you have Praetorian guards. It may not be your whole security team, but it's at least 1 or 2 of them. And, if you are a high net worth individual and you have to have security, and you need insurance because you're going to have liability insurance for that security team.
Mm-hmm.
So in order for you to get insurance such that you have that security team, so if they do conduct something and they kill somebody, or they kill somebody innocent, or there's a civil suit, you don't get destroyed, you have to have liability insurance. Okay. You can't get that liability insurance if you don't contract with certain PMCs and security companies for your security. And every one of those directly ties back to the Five Eyes.
Huh.
Or to the MI5 or FBI.
Mm-hmm.
Every single one of them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we have a Praetorian problem, and I know this from actual direct personal experience. So this isn't me just talking hyperbole, okay, or exaggeration. So we have a vast Praetorian Guard problem. The worst problem is that our Praetorian Guard problem since 1947 has morphed into something far more dangerous, to where what I call the Devil's Legions, and people can look that up, or Churchill's Horrors. That's another piece.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yep.
But this Praetorian Guard system, this Praetorian system, began in the early 1900s, making more money off of illicit trade than licit economies. And starting in 1947, they formalized in the form of the charter of the CIA and the rechartering of MI6, the formalization of the relationship between the mob, and people can look up the mob state problem. I've written a whole series on that, series of threads. They instantiated the Praetorian Guard and the Praetorian system in the form of the relationships between government, the intelligence agencies and law enforcement agencies, the organized crime organizations, and the terrorist organizations. And as of which, all of which were the criminal and terrorist organizations are self-funding. So now what's happened since 1947 is we've used the martial capacities of the English-speaking world to do a mob war where the Praetorians have brought all of the world's criminal organizations and the terrorist organizations under their control. They all now work for the Praetorians. This is what I call the Devil's Legions. And people can track it, look it up. You and I are old enough to remember Ollie North, Senator I do not recall, right? Talking about Iran-Contra, where they're moving cocaine out of Iran, or out of South and Central America into the United States, into cities, and then using that money to buy weapons from Iran. For the Iran-Contra issue. So point being is this: we have these very capable, very substantive paramilitaries that are self-funded now, that are, the extension of the Praetorian Guards, who have knives at the throats of virtually every wealthy elite and every world leader that there is, outside of Russia, by the way, outside of China. And now, as we've been allowing the killing of IRGC leaders outside of Iran, because the IRGC were actually parts of the Devil's Legions. They worked for the City of London. They did not work for the Ayatollah. They were the Ayatollah's Praetorian Guard, the ones that kept the Ayatollahs in check.
Now, you made a post on X about Eric Prince. What was that about? Came out, today or yesterday?
Yeah. Give me a second. If I was, and I've written about this as well, but if I was going to, I think a thing was set in motion with the assassination of the Kennedy brothers and others. Right? We've got to look at what happened to the Gettys, the Hearst family, the elite families of the 1950s, 60s, and 70s. A lot of really bad shit went down in those families. Rothschilds
self-inflicted or from the outside?
From the Praetorians. Getting them under control. Rothschilds have been killed. Perhaps Ray Dalio's eldest son was killed after they tried to kill his middle son, Paul, who I know. Okay. So folks need to understand that a lot of these elite families have had family members killed in mysterious circumstances, or even obvious circumstances. We don't pay attention to that because they're rich and they're all in on it. Right? But I suspect something was set in motion in the 1960s which was the reaction, the Constantine-like reaction to this, where they realized they had to destroy the Praetorian Guard, and they had to destroy this Praetorian regime, which we call the British regime, or the City of London, or whatever, right? And we can use those labels if people want. Were I to push back and fight and bring all this out and bring the fight and make Milvian Bridge 2.0, whatever that is, happen, I would have to be able to assure that myself and my family were safe and secure.
Yeah.
I'd have to have my own security team that I know and I trust, right? And I'd have to draw them from all over, and I'd have to have enough wealth that I could afford them, because that is not inexpensive.
Yeah.
Like the Trump family, in order to protect the Trump family, it's probably $200 million a year they spend on their own security out of their own pocket.
Yeah.
$200 million a year. Right?
Far and beyond the Secret Service. Way
beyond, right? This is their own pocket. This is their own monies. Okay. And this was even before he got into office. Give me a second. The other thing, though, that I would have to have, right? Because even with the greatest security, maybe one of his people gets the family gets, taken hostage. And so then that guy kills one of Trump's family members.
Yeah.
Right. Because again, that happens, right? Guy might not want to be disloyal, might not want to, but they got his kids and his wife. Right.
Yeah.
So, okay. What I would do is I would prepay contracts on certain people. That is an open contract. If anything happens to me or any member of my family, this person, and this person is going to die.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if I'm already dead. I've prepaid the contract with an entity or an organization that I know I can trust.
So it's like a dead man switch, basically.
It's a dead man switch. It's the only way, when I look at what's happening in the real power transition shift right now, I suspect that these contracts are covering pretty much every one of his close cabinet members and their families. And I don't think, of course, he himself, Trump didn't pay this. The power that's behind Trump, because he's just the front man. Yeah. Paid this. But I suspect very much there's a whole number of contracts. And I suspect very much that, sometimes we see certain people at certain events receive envelopes. Yeah. Those don't necessarily have to have money in them. They can have a message.
Yeah. Or a letter. Yeah.
A letter.
Yeah.
If you think to move against, if you think to these things, right? So at a certain point, the only way to break free of this hidden knife at the throat power structure, this invisible but very, very powerful power structure, at a certain point, you yourself have to be willing to kill people in the dark, in the middle of the night, or in broad daylight. Now, you don't want to do it. You don't want to go there unless you're forced to it. But unless you yourself have that capacity and are willing to use it, you're a servant. You're a servant to those who do it and do it willingly.
Now, it's interesting for the common man, common woman to look at this from our point of view. But as this plays out, and it plays out within this dimension, this hierarchy up above, for those of us who are below that, as we try to grasp the understanding, or how does it affect our lives, how would you translate that?
Well, okay, great question. Those things don't impact us necessarily. What does impact us gets back to the very beginning of this conversation. If there are contracts, right? Open-end contracts. And by the way, this is how the mob works too, right?
Yeah.
But if there are open-end contracts and I can't move against this high net worth or this powerful person directly, or their family members, wouldn't I radicalize and stir up young men so that I can have plausible deniability when one or more of them gets targeted with my family members? I didn't contract with them. I don't know who the hell that is. That's just a crazy person.
Yeah.
Wouldn't I do that? Wouldn't I radicalize millions of young men and then, have very sophisticated ways of targeting towards somebody?
Yeah. And they talk about it from like an MK Ultra point of view, but that's actually just minuscule in relation to the whole picture.
Correct.
Yeah. I mean, it's
correct.
Because all you got to do is just pick and choose. You can interview somebody for a job, and suddenly if you really knew it wasn't a job, it was not the job you thought you were being interviewed for.
Well, that's not how we do it anymore. How they do it, like in Butler and in Utah, there's a game. It's playing a game. These guys are playing this alternate reality game across all these different platforms and all these different ways, and they're just playing a game.
Mm-hmm.
But they're willing to play a game like that because they're radicalized. They're like, and they got nothing to lose.
Mm-hmm.
Everything to gain. That the young man that got rolled up for this in Utah for the killing of Charlie Kirk probably didn't pull that trigger.
No, and absolutely not. I mean,
but
no way.
He gained a lot in the alternate reality game they're playing. He just earned a vast amount of status. He's now high status in this radicalized kids world, this radicalized young men world. Same thing with Luigi Mangione. I suspect the alternate reality game was used there too. I don't think he pulled the trigger. But all this trail and pathway, it doesn't matter. He's been made a star. Same thing with the kid in Butler.
Interesting.
Right? So in this alternate reality game, these radicalized boys that go and do these things, and some girls too, by the way, particularly trans, right? Because they want to be like the boys.
Yeah.
They earn status. And I'll give you an example of this that's maybe easier for people to understand. Serial killers have a ranking system amongst themselves.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
They have a scoring ranking system.
I know this,
And they have quiet little ways through the whole prison system to communicate with one another.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
People really, when I was writing the book, The Eternal War, I studied this stuff for about a year, serial killers and all of this, resentful serial killers, etc. And I'm not going to lie, it was a very dark place and a very, very disturbing place. If you think, so the original Silence of the Lamb movies doesn't really get to it. But a couple of the later ones do get to it, to where there's this fan club, there's this, ranking system. What's the show about the FBI's behavioral unit?
NCIS? No, not NCIS.
No. It was specifically about the creation of the FBI's behavioral unit that targeted, that did the serial killer profiling and all of that. I can't remember the name of it. It's a good show, good series, because it goes into the history of how this was created. But that show does go into how there is a ranking, there is a pecking order, amongst serial killers.
Yeah. And the reward system is basically just the title. They actually pay each other.
No, it's the same thing at all real rewards. The only real rewards that are real for men is status.
Yeah.
It's not money. Right? Those aren't real men.
Status and power. Yeah.
It's status and power. Respect amongst your peers.
Yeah.
That is the only real reward for a man.
That's actually
same for women too, right? So women have status amongst other women, and then women's way of status is way more complex than
it's very
it is
different
for men.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's kind of like Napoleon, with giving a ribbon. A man will die for a ribbon. And that's status right there, because you live on even though you're dead. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's the Medal of Honor.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the Medal of Honor. Look at the Medal of Honor. Look at how we revere it. And we do. But real men. I've known a guy I've known for.
But I do remember back in the day when I was in Central America and I was dealing with the Vietnam Navy SEALs, and those Navy SEALs were the ones that came up with the term Medal of Horror. Medal of Horror. Nobody uses that term anymore, but it used to be the Medal of Horror. Because you did not want to get that thing. Because 9 times out of 10, you got it posthumously. Yeah.
Well, it's
a lot of things are
not
gone.
necessarily because you had to earn it posthumously. It's because you had to earn it in some ruthless bloodshed, horrible atrocity.
Yeah.
Right. Think about guys like Colonel Howard, who was nominated twice.
Yeah.
He was nominated 4 times, but he was nominated twice on the same mission for 2 different actions. And I can't remember. Chapman, the Air Force guy, who should have gotten both, but the Navy SEAL came in and stole it. I can't remember the name of him, but those should have both gone to him posthumously because they were both the same Chapman guy. That was his action that he did.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's guys that quite literally not only earned 1 Medal of Honor, not only been nominated more than once, like Howard, the first 3 times he was nominated, those were all covert operations, so he couldn't receive it. But the final mission he did that he got it, you know, that they gave it to him. He was nominated twice on the same mission for a Medal of Honor for 2 different actions. And if you read and you talk to the people, it was bloody.
Yeah.
So that's more the horror part. It's not that you earn it posthumously; it's that you go through horror to receive. And that's the other thing. I don't want to say you earned it. You know, you earned the Medal of Honor. That implies that, you know, there's some job
that you worked for it.
You were awarded.
You worked toward it.
You were awarded. You know, the Medal of Honor for your actions. Guys that are trying to earn it are the ones that get people killed.
Yeah.
But, you know, back to the original conversation, to bring it back here. A lot of our young men are radicalized. It's true. They're there. Unfortunately, a lot of their wrath and rage is justified and real and honest. And we can't and should never diminish that or take away from that. But it's a very immense danger. And they are increasingly, now that we're moving away from DEI, they're now increasingly being, directed exactly like the Germans were in the late 1920s towards this undesirables list. And this isn't hyperbole. It isn't exaggeration. It was just directed at me with death threats to my family within the last 5 days, publicly.
Well, how do you see the resolve on this? Because it seems like this is the way the train's going, or the ship's on its course. And this has been going on for a lot longer than we've even been thinking about it.
Well, it's been going for 60 years and then taking off the last 40. That's another great question, Court. What we have to do is we have to accept it. We have to admit it. We have to recognize that this is amongst us. And where and when we can, we need to do what we can to help young men. And when I say young men, I mean like from late 40s down. We need to do what we can. And we've spent a century focusing on women, more than a century and a half of focusing on women and, gay men and, lesser, well, I shouldn't say lesser, but, on the estrogens. We've been spending over a century and a half focusing on the estrogens.
Well, it's also the reaction of that is a heavy duty focus emasculation of the American male.
Well, that's because
and specifically the American male, because I don't see this happening in Pakistan or freaking Africa.
No, but it's the whole English speaking world, though. It's happening in Australia, New Zealand, Canada,
New Zealand,
Ireland, all over the English, South Africa. It's happening all over the English speaking world on purpose, because we're the ones set up for the step 7, right? For collapse, theft of everything, collapse, and then abandonment. To do that, you have to get rid of the young men. Why? Because in contract law, you have to take physical possession of the assets. You can't do that if the young men are standing there with guns and they're like, you're not taking this shit.
Exactly.
You're not taking this shit. So what do? They got to turn us against our own young men.
Exactly.
And they got to then turn all of us loose on some other enemy, which is why they flooded terrorists and cartels and everything else.
Exactly.
So to your question, one, we need to recognize that we have a very, very serious danger amongst our men in this country, and that it's being intentionally done. And so
this actually fits in. This fits in with the Great Taking, which is it's an asset theft.
It's the mechanism. It's one of the mechanisms of the Great Taking. That's exactly right. This is step 7 of the financial skill chain, the book I wrote. Okay.
Yeah.
Give me a second. There's a great Tom Luongo and I, with his Gold Goats and Guns, about a year ago now. I don't know how long ago. We did it. We had this conversation. People might want to go to that. But the point is that we need to recognize that men and our tranny women, unfortunately, tranny females, genetic females, right, are very there's a good portion of them very violently radicalized, and that is real. And what we need to do is we need to be aware of, they can only succeed if we are weak targets. If we are not aware, we're not conscious, and we're vulnerable targets, because that's all they go after. They do not go after strong, hard targets.
Exactly.
Right? So one, we need to be aware of that and harden ourselves, constantly be aware of that. The other thing we need to do is we need to look to our sons, our brothers, our uncles, our cousins, our nephews. And we need to look to them and see how they are really doing and see what we can do to help them, and stop leaving them to handle this on their own, because the entire system is rigged against them at every scale, everywhere, every minute of the day. And we need to check on them and make sure they don't go down this pathway, or if they are part way down this pathway, we can bring them back. Because here's the thing, people. If we, the English-speaking people, lose our men from Gen X down, we lose everything, absolutely everything, right to our very lives.
Yes. Yeah. And the thing is like, oh, well, the government will take care of that. Or the education system will take care of that. And that's what's been the shuffling off of response. It's responsibility. And people have been so trained to be irresponsible. Well, it's okay. Sit back, relax. It's going to be fine. We'll take care of it for you.
What's happened is that we have lost. I wrote a couple pieces on finance as a religion. Well, finance as a religion has transitioned us from our civilization as the thing that we organize ourselves around to the economy, and finance is the thing we organize ourselves around. Well, that's a transactional, anti-humanist, inhumane system. Our civilization is what orients us to human relationships and complex webs of human relationships. We have to stop worshiping wealth as a god. We have to stop following money as if it's our savior. And we have to get back to the thing that makes us what we are, which is our relationships. And for us English-speaking peoples, the way in which we ascribe ourselves in this complex web of relationships is our Englishness. This is who we are as a people. This is how we orient ourselves. These are the things we believe. These are the things we believe are wrong. These are the things we will do. These are the things we won't. And we English peoples have done some extraordinarily good things in the world. Yes, we've cocked some things up. But we've tended to fix those things later when we realized what we were doing, and we've made amends. Right? But, this is the focus now very much in my life, having just had it thrown right at me. I thought and I've written books, Modern Knight's Guidebook about how men should, orient and train and prepare themselves, and way beyond the martial, and all these other ways.
And that's what everybody focuses on, is the martial part of it. They don't realize the actual inner sense, of a warrior.
Yeah, exactly. Now I realize how dangerous it is, and how we don't have time to go do all this complicated education. No. Today, right now, people, after you hear this show, go talk to the males in your life. Husband, brother, father, son, nephew, uncle, grandfather. Go talk to the men in your life, the men around you, and see how they're doing, really doing. Right? And I don't mean the touchy-feely emotional bullshit. Right? Because that's all, estrogenic shit anyways, right?
That's where it comes from.
That's where it comes from. But what you need to do is not so much get into their feelings and all of that. What you need to do is you need to just take a look at them and go, are they doing okay in the world? Do they have a job? Do they have steady relationships? Look at those two things more than anything else. Are they improving themselves in ways that are going to set them up for the future? That's what I mean by go look at the males in your life.
We used to say, well, are they squared away? It's like, how are you doing? Are you squared away? That's all.
Right?
That's all.
You don't even need to ask them, right? You don't even need to ask them. Just go look at them and go, are they employed? Are they building skills that are going to help them improve in their employment? Do they have relationships, and are they healthy relationships with healthy people? You do those. If they have those three things, they're going to be doing okay.
But I want to qualify when you say employed, because I want to clarify that, because there's an employee and there's someone who's employed, and they don't necessarily mean the two things. One could be someone starting his own company, his own business, he's doing his own thing. He's not an employee who's going into the grind under some big corporation.
Well, you're absolutely right. When I mean employed, I mean they have gainful employment, right, or gainful income, and they might not be very good for them right now, and they might not like it. That's why I said the second one. Are they improving their skill base so that they can improve that?
Exactly.
Yeah. So what I should have said, gainfully employed, whether it's in their own company or
because one of the things I try to bring up is the idea that, do people really understand what wealth is? And people will automatically be confused and hypnotized by the fact, well, I've got thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars, fiat currency, or I've got gold and silver and all this kind of stuff. That's nice, and that's better than freaking fiat currency. But the understanding of what is true wealth, and I think we've been so confused within the last 30 years by a lot of the publishings and the books and all this stuff has been trying to push people and try to get all these seminars going to get these followers to put in their cash, that they've forgotten that people have lost what true wealth is. And if you are squared away, you actually are wealthy. because a lot of people
Wealth-
are not squared away and they have no wealth.
Wealth is relationships,
Exactly.
mutually beneficial relationships, because jobs can come and go, income can come and go, your money can come and go, your
Yeah.
gold can come and go. But if you have good, healthy relationships, you can recover.
Exactly.
This is why, I don't remember what it is. It's a huge number. It's like 90% of all millionaires have had at least one bankruptcy.
Exactly.
But most of them, like 80% of them recover within 2 years.
Yeah.
Why? Because they have relationships
Exactly.
and knowledge, and they learned also from the failure.
Exactly.
And they go on and they succeed. And I don't remember what the statistic is, but it's like roughly 90%. I'm just putting the number out there, but it's pretty close to that. Fail and then recover.
Yeah.
But the second go, they have something less than 40% failure rates. And those that have gone on a third time have like almost 0% failure rates.
And I think, that's what I've always been impressed with the special operations environment, society, is that in that environment, you are taught that. You are taught that you never win all the time, but it's how you react to that loss that matters. Yes. And also part of that is the reliance on your team. Your team works together and you're part of that team, et cetera.
Relationships,
exactly.
It's not just a title or position. The successful guys are the guys that built relationships with their team members that then helped them when their team members went to other teams, even if they didn't like each other.
Yes.
Which, by the way, happens a whole lot.
Yeah.
Right. But any one of those guys I served with, even the guys I really don't like, even guys that did something, to harm me in my career. Yeah. Any one of those guys reaches out to me anytime in my life and needs something that I can give. And I know they're not trying to screw with me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to give it.
Yeah.
I'm going to give it.
Yeah. And that's part of that that's that relationship aspect.
Correct.
And again, what are they trying to do right now? They're trying to break our relationships. Correct. They're trying to disenfranchise us. Correct. They're trying to freaking just throw us to the wind. And when you are thrown to the wind like that, you will float. You'll just keep on floating away. What they want is
they want us to only have relationships with the state through our politicians and political figures.
With the warden. Yeah.
So like, how is that? That's like the most insane thing ever.
Yeah.
Why would I have a relationship with you?
Yeah.
Right? Why can't I just have the relationship with my neighbor?
Yeah.
Why can't I just talk to that person? Why do I need to go through you?
Yeah. Yeah. It's true. Mechanism. I mean, and that's the thing about the whole idea of local community. And that's why I always push the Constitution. If you're an American and you haven't read the US Constitution, you are cheating yourself. You're not cheating anybody else other than yourself, because that was written for us. It was written for us to look.
One of the most extraordinary, sorry, I didn't mean to step on you there.
No.
One of the most extraordinary things is that it's one thing to read the Constitution. It's another thing now to ask Grok which each clause means, and Grok will help you understand.
Yeah.
Right. It literally, quite literally, because what Tommy Kerrigan and I did this show a year or so ago about Grok as a constitutional lawyer. If people look at, and Elon actually said something posted this just the other day. I was like, see. But what people don't understand is that Grok specifically was designed from the beginning as a constitutionalist.
No kidding. Okay.
Unlike OpenAI, become ChatGPT, etc., Grok was designed from its inception as a constitutionalist engine.
Did not know that.
Trained on the Constitution, Declaration of Independence, the Federalist Papers, all the classics, the Scottish and English Enlightenment classics, et cetera, et cetera. Grok was trained on it.
Now, this brings us back to asking the right questions. So when you're interacting with Grok, how do you lead your questions in to interact with Grok for the Constitution?
Okay, so wonderful question, right? And for anybody who doesn't know, my doctoral studies were in computational engineering, AI. So that was my background: large language models, sentiment analysis, all of that kind of stuff, data brokerage. Here's the extraordinary thing about Grok specifically. Gab AI, the same. You can use Gab AI. It's different. It doesn't connect to the live internet like Grok does, so it's a little bit limited. But you can actually ask it how to ask it the right question. You can quite literally, if you have a thought or concept in your mind, you can say, how do I ask you, how do I write this, articulate this such that I can ask you the right question? You can literally ask it that. that's what that's the way of great teachers, right? Is you fumble through the question a bit until the teacher helps you find the right question, and then there's the answer.
Yeah.
So you can I do this sometimes. I quite literally will, go, I don't know exactly how to write this prompt. And I will ask Grok, how do I write this prompt? And it will help me do it.
Huh.
And then as soon as I get it, I get a way more complex and sophisticated, rich, answer than if I just try to figure out the question myself.
Do you think Grok is actually better than ChatGPT for that type of
better?
No
Way
kidding.
better. ChatGPT was intentionally designed as a DEI engine.
No kidding. Okay.
Intentionally.
Huh. Okay.
And by the way, Perplexity and a whole bunch of these other systems
That makes a lot of sense. Okay.
Are actually not their own AIs. They're a front end for ChatGPT.
Yeah, because I'm working on a proposal for the government of Japan. It was interesting that a DEI popped in there and said, "Would you like this with the sensitivities of Japan at this present moment right now?"
Yeah,
that floored me. Okay,
ChatGPT was designed to be the DEI engine. That's why they're flooding it through all of through Copilot, through Gemini, through all of these other things. Is they're trying to force DEI. Continue this DEI through these large language models. But Grok was designed as the refutation of that.
Wow. Very interesting. Okay, that's good to know.
Right.
Cool. I'll apply that then. Cool. E.M., as always, we have great talks, and I want to not get this going over because last time we went way over, and people have it's a time issue, and I know they're going to have to break this up through their day to listen to. I definitely want to talk with you again about this and some other stuff we'll be talking about later offline. Is there anything else you want to say other than, again, go over to E.M. Burlingame over at X and follow them at Substack? And where else would you like to send them other than Amazon?
If they'd like to sign copies of the book, go to emburlingame.com and I'll send you. Now, I can't do it internationally because of the whole tariff thing right now. It costs me more money to send books. Like I just had to send some to Amsterdam, not a big stack of books. It was like $70.
Wow.
So just to ship. So unfortunately, I can't do international right now until we get all that under control. But
okay, very good.
Yep.
Well, thank you again, E.M.
Yep.